One of the issues that we faced early on in this quarantine was, how does a church steward its building when you can't meet in it for worship? Well, it's been the place where we have filmed Sunday messages. It's been a place where children's videos have been filmed. It's a place where offices are still up and operational. In addition to that, we turned the auditorium into a Nerf war zone for parents to bring their kids in order to get out of the house and out of that tight confines of the four walls of a home and to play hide and seek and to play Nerf wars. Next door right now, there's a table and 2 chairs set up for moms and dads to come and get a much-needed date night and to go get takeout from a restaurant, to bring it there and to have just a couple of hours to talk and to eat together quietly. We've done our very best to use the building as a steward, recognizing God gave it to us. At the same time, we've worked really hard to just kind of take care of some things that are easier to take care of when nobody's here. So right now, the building is probably cleaner than it's ever been. All the chairs have been cleaned, the floors have been cleaned, walls have been wiped down, air ducts have been cleaned out, light fixtures have been cleaned. The sound booth has never looked better. At the same time, we're in the midst of a little bit of a remodel for the nursery. Fresh paint, there'll be some new things that are in there for moms and little babies to enjoy when we're able to regather. We've done the very best that we can to steward this building well. Now, every Sunday, you have seen a glimpse of this building as we've recorded videos in here for you to use on Sundays. The Sunday messages in here, a lot of the children's material is filmed inside of this building. But every time we see a glimpse of this building or we think about it, we're reminded that we didn't design this building to have Nerf wars or to simply film in. We designed this building so that God's people could gather together and worship and fellowship. And probably the question I'm asked most of late is, when do you think we'll be back together to worship and fellowship together? And my answer to that is, I'm not really sure. But I quickly follow that answer with this. We are, though, making steps forward to get ready for when we can. So cleaning the building and remodeling the nursery are some of those steps forward. As you look behind me, you'll note that the seats are in a different configuration. We're putting pieces together for our reopening, for our reassembling together. But more than just putting chairs in a particular place or making sure that a building is clean, one of the key things that each of us need to do to be prepared for reassembling together is to make sure that we are thinking right and that our heart is right as we come back together. And over these midweek videos, one of the things that I'm going to do is to make sure that we are thinking right and that our heart is right on some things so that when we do reassemble together, we're ready. And where I want to take us today is a thought from Ezra chapter 3. I don't have a Bible in front of me, and probably you don't either. But sometime this week, I want you to open Ezra 3, and I want you to note the coexistence of sorrow and joy. The coexistence of sorrow and joy. They're both present among the people. They're rejoicing that the house of the Lord is coming back together. There's joy. But at the same time, some who had been around for a while, they look back and they say, but this isn't what I saw years ago. I'm very aware that sorrow and joy can both exist together. For instance, at a funeral, a family may be sorrowing that they have lost a loved one, but yet rejoicing that that loved one is now free from pain and with the Lord in heaven. Sorrow and joy. Maybe it's at a wedding. The bride is rejoicing with joy that she's getting married and adding someone to her family, but she's also sorrowing that her father wasn't alive to walk her down the aisle. Maybe it's in the hospital when a mom delivers a child. She sorrows at the pain of childbirth, but rejoices that she holds a baby in her hands. I have a sense that on those first few Sundays that we're back together, there's going to be kind of this weird coexistence of sorrow and joy. You see, the sorrow is going to come because we're looking around saying, this isn't what we left a couple of months ago. There may be some aspects to our reassembling together that don't look anything like it used to. For a while, maybe ever. And there's going to be a concept of sorrow that goes along with that. But yet at the same time, we're sitting in this auditorium looking at each other face to face, and we're rejoicing that as a church, we're back together. Sorrow and joy existing together. We're going to need God's grace to sorrow well. But at the same time, we don't need to be ashamed or feel guilty about rejoicing that we're back together, though it's different than it used to be. When we gather together, worship is designed to take our attention from earth and to take it to the eternal. And I want to help you with that. Do you realize that in Revelation 7 and in Revelation 21, God says that when you and I step into heaven, that God wipes away the tears. Now, what that means is that one of the joys of heaven is that in heaven, joy and sorrow don't exist together anymore. God takes sorrow and He wipes it away, and we spend all of eternity with joy. As we gather back together, there is going to be the coexistence of sorrow and joy. But here's what I want to help us with. Let it, by the grace of God, take our eyes and lift them heavenly. And to be reminded that here on earth, sorrow and joy coexist. But there, it'll only be joy. Let coming back together cause us to long for heaven more than ever before. Now, I know that you're wanting some practical things to do, and I want to give you a very, very practical one. Would you pray with me this week? Would you focus time to pray for a few things? Would you, number one, pray with me that our government officials here in California would give us clear allowance to start to meet together? Number two, would you also pray with me that I would have a wisdom to know when we should meet together? Just because we can may not mean it's best to meet. There's some wisdom that is involved to make sure that when we start reassembling together, it's at just the right time. Third, would you pray with me that God would give wisdom to know how to reopen and to start to reassemble? I'm going to keep saying this because I really want to set our expectation up. Reassembling back together is not going to be like a light switch that we turn on and suddenly everything is back to normal. It's probably going to look a little bit more like a sunrise. It is going to be a slow progression as we move back to as much normalcy as we possibly can get. And we're going to need wisdom to know how to do that. Now, finally, this week, in addition to praying for those three things, would you fourthly pray with me that God's people would be faithful? Being faithful means doing the right thing consistently, though we're not seeing fruit immediately. Folks, there's an aspect to where we're at right now. It's like we're in the last lap of a long race. And we can kind of see the finish line out there, but if we're not careful, we'll quit too soon. And so pray with me that God's people, that Faith Baptist Church of Folsom, California, would finish this course that God has set before us, and that we'd stay faithful, consistently doing the right thing, though we may not be seeing fruit immediately. This week, I'm making a focus on praying for those 4 things, and I invite you to join me in praying for those things. I can't wait to the day when we can start to reassemble together. In practical ways, we're getting ready for it. Spiritually, let's keep preparing our heart for it, and let's pray towards that end. I love you. Stay faithful. I'm praying for you.